Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Legacy. My name is Leonardo Caprelli. I'm the Academy Director here at the Football Domain Academy. So as you can see today, we are in the office, and something I wanted to talk to you a bit about today in this episode is how to perform better. So how do you become a better player? How do you perform better on the field? And overall, if you perform better, you will end up getting more playing time. Now, this is an obstacle I used to have as a kid, because I was never, in my first years of playing, I was never the first player on my coach's starting lineup. I would struggle a lot, and it was mainly down to my confidence. I never had confidence in myself. I never had confidence in my team. And that was mainly down because I had a problem and I had an obstacle inside of me that wouldn't allow me to perform better. And once I mastered becoming more confident and doing these three simple things that I'm going to share with you, then my confidence started to go up, and ultimately I started to perform much better and at a much better level, which ultimately led to me getting more playing time and being more consistent in my performances. Now, number one is I started to look after what I ate. Now, I got to the age of about 13 and I realized that a big problem I was having was with my nutrition. I wasn't looking after what I was consuming. I wasn't looking after the types of things I was putting into my body. And I realized that the more I failed to look after my body, that the slower I was becoming on the field. And this is a common theme with most kids, because most kids don't look after their body. Most kids train, and then when they get off the field, they become undisciplined with their nutrition, with what they eat, with their habits off the field. And this is really, really common. And this was a massive, massive obstacle I had, which I had to change quickly if I was to perform better. And I realized that once I did change this habit, then I started to feel lighter. I started to feel better on the field, and I could last longer when the coach put me on. So before I started to look after my body, I remember when I came on as a substitute, I could only last about 15 to 20 minutes before I started to run out of breath. And that was because I wasn't eating the right nutrition. I wasn't eating the right foods that was then having an impact on my performances, because I was eating foods that were heavy for me and foods that ultimately started to affect my game, because I just felt heavy. I felt bloated, and all my movements off and on the ball were just very slow. And this was something I had to change really quickly if I was to become a better player. Now, the second thing I started to improve on, and the second thing I recommend, is I started to making sure that I was hydrated and I was drinking water more regularly. Now, this is a very simple thing, but it's something that not many kids do. Okay, so the goal should be you should be at least drinking 2 liters of water every single day, and try and drink this during the day. This doesn't have to be all in one go, but it does have to be an activity or a habit you build, because your muscles are made out of water, and the more water that you have within your muscles, the better you are going to perform, and the better your body is going to operate. Now, this was definitely something that I didn't do either. So you can imagine my nutrition was poor, my hydration levels weren't there because I wasn't drinking enough water. So what happened is when I got onto the field, I started to get really dehydrated, and that dehydration then started to slow me down. And also it was because of the foods I was eating. So when you eat foods that are very heavy, very greasy, they start to dry up your body because those types of foods are quite hard for the body to digest, and they consume a lot of water. So when I got onto the field, I felt that my body was, instead of helping my muscles to perform better, they were actually working to break down my body, which meant I started to get fatigued very, very easily. And once I started to change that habit, and once I started to drink more water, I started to make that a ritual, so to speak, that every single day, without fail, I was drinking water, and I was drinking at least 2 liters per day. Then this started to change the way I felt. I felt I had more energy. I felt I had more confidence because I felt lighter. I was now eating better. And I was always technically, I always felt I was a very good player. But I was lacking that nutritional how do we say it? That nutritional guideline that my coach just wasn't providing me. And I felt that if I had that earlier, then I would have been a much better player, and I would have performed far better in games. Now, the third one is something that I would recommend you do, is I started to learn off the better players on the field and on my teams. So instead of hanging around with players that would maybe disrupt sessions, or they weren't, so to speak, the stronger players of the team, I started to surround myself with the better players, because I knew that if I could surround myself with the better players, then ultimately I would become a better player, because I would start to pick up habits like they were doing. I would start to observe how they played. What were their movements on the ball? What were their movements off the ball? When were they making decisions? When were they releasing the ball? All these types of things that are really important in the game. And as soon as I started to hanging around with these players, both in training and off the field, I learned so much off them that then I started to implement these things into my game. And when I did, I noticed my performances started to really, really improve. And ultimately, I did become a better player. I became a better player, and I started to get more playing time. I started to get more minutes. I started to feel better about myself. So the 3 tips I want to share with you today are: number 1, look after your nutrition. Make sure you're eating right, eating the right foods. Okay, number 2, stay hydrated. I can't really keep saying the importance of making sure your body is hydrated at all times. Even when you're training in the winter, and even when you're training in the summer, make sure your body is consistently hydrated, and make sure that you are consistently getting enough fluid so that your muscles can perform and can work when they are required to do so. Now, number 3, the third point is learn off the better players. Like, that was something I wasn't doing when I was younger. I was always hanging around with players that were average, mediocre. And that started to affect me, because then I started to turn average. I started to turn into a mediocre player. But once I shifted my mindset and I said to myself, right, Leo, you need to now start hanging around and learning off the better players, then I really developed my game. I started modeling what they were doing. I started copying some of the things they done on the field, some of the decisions they made. And when I done that, then I noticed my game was improving and my performances were getting better really, really quickly. And what started to happen is I ultimately started to get more minutes of the game, because the coach saw that I was improving. The coach saw that I was hanging around with the better players, that I was working hard, because I was learning off the best. And that's something you have to do as a player. Learn off the better players, look after your body off the field, make sure you are hydrating your body so that when you get onto the field, when you step onto the field, whether this be in training or in games, you are giving 100% and your body is able to function so that you can perform better. Okay, hope this video has helped you. If it has, please like and subscribe to the channel, because every single week without fail, we bring out content which is designed to help kids become more confident players, become more disciplined, and ultimately develop a growth mindset that will help them to get to the next level of their game and become successful both on and off the field. Okay, if you have any questions for me, leave them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next episode.